Good evening, everyone. System Chalk here for what should be the 29th episode of our first YouTube run through Book of Hours. It has actually been quite some time since I played this game, including the Twitch stream, so I'm really looking forward to coming back to this, but I'm going to be particularly thick in terms of some of the details for the game. And I believe there's also been a big patch that's come out for this since I played it last, so I'm sure there's going to be a little bit of a learning curve, but nothing too major. Let's take a look at where we're at. So we're just finishing off autumn, the Elegies season. It's the start of the day, so I have a few options. It's cloudy, and I suppose the first thing that I might want to take a look at, we've got some U-Blank, we've got Witching to Sane to play around with, but I suppose one of the first things I would want to do is take a look at what books I could conceivably get through, particularly if this is going to be one of the last few days of autumn. It's always nice to make sure that I don't have too much on deck for the transition between the seasons, just in case, I get hit by a Numa or something like that. So I suppose the first thing I would be interested in is with Lady Ava's Repose. Now, the easiest thing that I could do right now would be to get some winter to add that with the Sights and Sensations. No, sorry, not Sights and Sensations. There was one that had better winter. If it's just Sights and Sensations, then it's probably not worth trying. But I think I was going to make it so that today was sort of the day when we just took a bit of a flyer on some of our different texts. So the Berry book, if I recall correctly, for the Berry book, this is one that was going to be a bit of a challenge. I think we were going to wait for the rain because we can get one health from the right. Yes, I remember now because I was looking for the nectar desk. Okay, you know what? There's another way that I can think about today's work. So we have the Despoiled Laboratory. That's Forge and Winter. The Wind-Prowled Gallery is Forge, Lantern, and Sky. We have the Veiled Chamber, which would be Heart, Lantern, Moon, and Winter. Heart would be most likely through Mrs. Kill. The Heart-Haunted Room, so that's also a Grail or Heart. In fact, that's probably the easiest one for me to follow up on. I do at some point want to make some ink so that I can unlock that. Okay, so if I were to work with Mrs. Kill on this, we would take her 2, then we would add the Arab for 4, we would add Satisfaction for 6, 7 for the scales, but then, okay, well in that case we just use the Witching to Sane. So that seems to be a reasonable enough start. So Mrs. Kill's mood always improves when I drop by. If you don't choose a topic, Mrs. Kill will offer help as a friend. Now, I do have the option of bringing in an Orchard Keeper. The Orchard Keeper would give me nectar, but I don't really think I want to be working with nectar right now. We did have the Wheel-Filled Spring, and don't get me wrong, there's certainly things that I can do down in the dawn areas, but there's also quite a bit that I can do in the upper parts of the house as well. So I think I'll follow the usual pattern here, which is to take sort of the low-hanging fruit. Now, I do think it would be a shame if I didn't try any books here. So let's maybe figure out what my best chances are. If I had something that gave me a hindsight, that would help, but I don't really think we have that. So I think this gives me sort of gossip or something equivalent to that. Probably should read Wrapped in the King just because it gives me something nice. Confounding Parables here. I think this is Intuition. This would be Solace. Why can I not remember Ava's Treasury? And this would be Satisfaction. So we know we've got a Satisfaction waiting for us. Yeah, so I'm... oh, this might actually be a Foresight now that I think of it. Yeah, because this would be Solace and this would be Storm, Impulse, Confounding Parable, Intuition, Fear, Salt. I actually don't remember this one. Okay. Yeah, so my hindsight would actually be something that I would get from Mrs. Kill if I wind up getting it. So fair enough. Maybe Lady Ava's repose isn't quite as secure as I thought it might be. What else can we hunt for? Well, the other option I have would be to try and work with Reverend Timothy. So if I did that, Reverend Timothy would start with 2. So let's just say that I can bring everything to bear with Reverend Timothy. So we get the 2 from... Yeah, you know what? I think that's probably one for the weather. Because if I start with his 2, we can get him up to the 6. But then there's a question in terms of where his sort of his remaining boosts come from. On the other hand, Denzel seems ready. So with the Veiled Goddess Lapsang Suchong, well, no, because actually we don't have much in terms of Forge to give him. So we could bring him up to 4 with his natural ability and his natural ability in the memory. Then we could bring him up to 5. Well, okay, that gets me the Despoiled Laboratory. But it does seem a little silly to just give up a T when I'm perfectly capable of getting a medal for that. So, yeah, I think I probably want to... I think I want to start committing some things to the Tree of Wisdoms, but it is this situation here where I feel like a few of these are ones that I should be able to make some progress on. So this, I realize spending 5 minutes seeing somebody sort of hover over the text isn't the most exciting thing, but I do want to give some reasoning behind why I'm doing it this way. So, we've got... Well, Instruments of the Heart feels like something that should be manageable. Well, we've got 2 from the core. Okay, so we've got 3 between the core and the instrument. 6. Okay, I mean, it's a gamble, but this is probably one of the better gambles that I have. So I'm going to use my Trist on that. I actually have a few ideas about how to manage this. So I'm going to verify the Solace with Traveling at Night Volume 2. I've already mastered this, but I could reread it and perhaps recall a memory. Let's say that Lantern's also off the menu, so I will... So the thing here is I want to make sure that I'm reading books reasonably early in the day so I have a chance to sort of follow up on the challenges. So let's say that... I know the original plan was going to be that Instruments of the Heart would be something that I would use a storm with. But then we can just employ the storm towards something better. Maybe Lady Ava's Repose. And then let's say we'll use our Fete to open up this container. That leaves me a free Foss, so I think I'm just going to keep that... Well, no, sorry. I am going to read Wrapped in the King, because that's going to give me something that's useful no matter what. And what we'll probably wind up doing is renewing some elements of the soul at the Sweet Bones if I don't have... or if I do wind up reading the right text. So I wanted to at least give a shot at reading a book. Now, I guess the question would be, it's like, clearly here I'm having a little bit of trouble getting through all of the stuff that I want. So Mrs. Kill stands ready to help. You always cheer me up, she says morosely. And there's really no penalty for me committing these elements of the soul. I'm not doing the sort of run that I do on Twitch, you know, where I'm deliberately not committing things to the Tree of Wisdom. So like, why make this more difficult for myself? And essentially, this is one of the drawbacks in terms of how I've approached it this time around. And there's absolutely no reason to do it this way. This is just, you know, a mild preference, if it even counts as a preference for me. But the big deal here is that once I start committing these to the Tree of Wisdoms, I have less of a reason to level them up. Like I may still want to level them up, but ultimately here I'm going to, if I were to take, say, Coil and Chasm and Sky Stories or Desires and Dissolutions and so on and so forth, if I were to start committing these things to the Tree of Wisdoms, there's less flexibility. So if I wind up getting some extra texts which have more Coil and Chasm in them or pentiments or precursors, I might say, okay, you know what, it makes a little more sense for me to commit, skill A over skill B. And I may want to upgrade some of these a little bit differently as a result as well. And so one of the things that's kind of nice is if I can push this as far back as I can, then I have even more options in terms of being able to place these things in the Tree of Wisdoms where I want. So for instance, Desires and Dissolutions is at 5, whereas previously maybe I only would have put that in a level 2 before. And the big challenge is that you never know which one of these books is going to push your really valuable ones even higher. So I have a little bit of a triage system in terms of making sure that I'm committing things roughly in the way that I think will open up the number of options. But as the game says at the start, there are choices and so there are regrets. And so to a certain extent, I'm still adopting the regret minimization framework, just not quite as strictly as... I mean, essentially the Twitch stream wound up being that on steroids. It was it got a little ridiculous. Anyways, let's... I'm going to start by talking with Mrs. Kill. I do need to make sure that I have all of the elements required to boost her. In fact, thinking about this, I don't think I got the satisfaction, so I may need to read a book to make that happen. But anyways, I have a pretty good idea about how today is going to shape up, so I'm not too fussed. So one of the things, I was going to talk about this when I actually got around to committing, but one of the reasons why I've been buying up the languages, even at the expense of not doing some of the events here, these are going to give me a few more options in terms of committing things to the Tree of Wisdoms. Right, there it is and can be no tizzer. Mrs. Kill, as every local gossip knows, I came from France to marry Mr. Kill, but there's scant trace of the continent in her accent now. So we are trying to get into the heart-haunted room, so we need 8. That's going to require the Arab, that's going to require the Tisane, and that's going to require a proper 2 Grail memory. So gossip doesn't quite cut it for us. I think I can use the health to get an emergency satisfaction if I need. Okay, crack open the container. Delight in your discovery. We have a dark marrow. I haven't seen one of these before. In Brandkrug, they take marrows seriously. This is a marrow with secrets. So I think we need to move the mackerel aside so that we can properly display this one. Okay. We have Solace Memory, Traveling at Night Volume 2, the annotated dream journals of Christopher Olopoli, sometimes called the only readable occultist, illiterate, entertaining, bewildering. There is an extensive discussion of the comparisons between Olopoli's own dreams and those of the Emperor Elagabalus, who Olopoli regards as a dupe or avatar of the sun in rags. The white is west of the world, Olopoli remarks, and winter does not wait forever. Elagabalus found his way to the White Door at last, thankfully. Speech can't pass the White Door, and honestly, Elagabalus never had anything very interesting to say. I tried to follow in his footsteps, but I never learnt enough of the white. I suppose I'm thankful for that too, but here's what I do know. So there may be some wisdom in me trying to get another heart memory, because right now I'm just sort of... I'm setting myself up for disappointment. I've read Wrapped in the King a few times, so I'm going to leave that aside. Yeah, so here's the drawback with how I've worked out the heart challenge I'm about to go on. In fact, do I even have a heart desk? Yeah, here we go, the reading room desk. So it's all well and good for me to say, okay, instruments of the heart, then we'll throw in a core. When it comes down to skills, we'll take drums and dances. I think that's the only heart that's relevant here. We can add our memory. And then for a little bit extra, we could add, I think the mortar and no, sorry, that's nectar. It's only the cake bowls that add the heart. I thought there was one other thing that added heart. Oh, right, the mop and bucket. So this is all well and good. I've got 2 for the heart, but I do actually need to come up with a 2 heart memory. So I've got 60 seconds here. I'd feel a little uneasy doing this because it may wind up costing me some money later, but I would feel a lot better if I had this memory in hand just in case it proves useful. So here we'll read the Orchid Transfigurations Noon, the 3rd volume of a compilation of quasi-Rosicrucian allegories, supposedly by Robert Flood. This is in the original Latin. And the drawback here is that that heart was my follow-up. So there's actually 2 problems with this, which is number 1, that this heart was my follow-up for a situation where Mrs. Kill couldn't give me the grail that I needed in terms of memory. And in addition, oh, that's so bad. So yeah, in addition, if there was something requesting an element of the soul, I would have been able to throw the heart in there. So that's a real shame, but that's fine. That we live with our choices. Anyways, there's nothing holding me back from the text now. Either it's going to work or it isn't. But I do need to think a little bit about what we're doing with Mrs. Kill when the time comes. I do need to make sure, so I've got the Arab, I've got the T, or Tisane, and if I don't get the memory, I'm going to need to remember that I need 2 minutes, 1 to recover the element of the soul, and then 1 to generate the memory. Alright, there we go. I can discuss a memory with my assistant. This will use up the memory, but boost the assistant's abilities for the rest of the day. Unbelievable. Well, this was never going to work. Even if we had the heart, this was not going to turn out. Alright, the Orchid Transfigurations. A long dialogue between the Mountain Mother and the Vigilant Storm describes the ways in which both mountains and storms end and the protections they use against those ends. But we must use the knife, said the Lion Throne to one, the noose, the flame, the waking word against those who have passed the 3-valve door, and so none may pass. That is our law and the law of the sun. Now, I don't feel too bad about days like these, because in the end, they are a reflection of me attempting something. You know, you don't necessarily need to make progress so long. I mean, and in the end, too, if we want to talk about incremental progress, there is the Earth sign that I've got here, which that would, you know, that's a persistent memory. That's something that's going to carry over to the next day. The real shame here, though, is that I ultimately wasn't able to deliver in terms of the book. If I wind up with some kind of sickness, that's a little bit more of a worry, but even then, those things can be overcome. Eagerly we anticipate our work, and so we're up to 6. A nice drop. I can offer my assistants something to drink. This will increase their aspects. They'll also be glad of the refreshment. Not today. The mysteries in this have defeated me for now. You can always try again later. Perhaps what I'll do is take a closer look at... oh, this regret would have been nice, actually. So this would have gotten us a start with the winter text. And actually, we have more time in autumn than I thought we did, so... Overall, I'd say we're in better shape than I was before. Alright, now that is less of a... I'm a little less relaxed about that. Melody Dwendracy. My core has been compromised by a possessing presence from the Mansis behind the world. Quite a pleasant possessing presence, but it makes it hard to concentrate. A defeat when heart is present makes a core vulnerable to Dwendracy. As my concentration lapses, I begin to hear distant music, like the tapping of a drum. So this is good for cataloging and such, but not so good for not so good for me in terms of being able to get Mrs. Kill to access some of these heart challenges. Also, I was relying on this for gardening, and I believe I cannot garden, with a malady. So, Dwendracy is a kind of distraction or inspiration, or possession. In the wind, in the sea, in the crackle of flames, there is a music only I can hear, and when I give it too much attention, the world grows red as a rose. Alright, down to the Grushians. This has boosted their aspects appropriately. So, let's, I should be able to combat the moth, moth trouble fairly straightforwardly. So the Tryst and Solace... Yeah, so I would need the shears. In fact, now that I think of it, there is one challenge that I'll run into. So if I want to clear this out, I could add Tryst for 2. Oh, but I do have an element of the soul, so... Actually, resurgences and emergences would be sufficient, so I just take a glass of water with that. And we do have the well, so again, I should be able to draw up water with my core. But yeah, we'll be able to recover that without too much trouble. Okay, let's open up the Heart-Haunted Room. The light in this room dims in pulses of sunset red over and over, in a half-heard heartbeat that matches the crashing of the waves below. It'll need careful exorcism from someone attuned to these influences. Yeah, so I'll chalk this up to a mixed day, let's say. But what I can do with the ability to generate reasonably, so I can generate memories somewhat more efficiently now. I can actually generate a number of things, so I should be able to take. Well, that's going to expect some heart, so perhaps the reading room desk isn't the right. Yep. Free to sane. But yeah, I can generate memories. It's pretty straightforward to generate memories now, so in this case, I think probably what I can do, I can maybe take a few more tries with some of these texts before I really commit to committing some of these things. Commit to committing. Alright. So I'm not expecting any books in here. Stores. At the time of the Prayer Book Rebellion in 1549, Hendrik used this room as a prison cell for unfortunate locals, including the cunning man and rebel ringleader Red William, who had boasted of the curse he placed on Hendrik's heirs. There will be no seventh of his line. There is a story told in Brandkrug village that Hendrik came to speak with the imprisoned William in person. There will be no second of your line, he told him, and had him gelded there in this very cell, and cast into the darkness of the caves below the house. There is another story that Ava de Wolf once answered an importunate suitor by bringing him here to this room and pointing out a stain upon the stones. So we've got some Isle water in here, as well as some Eigengra. Actually, there's quite a bit for us to play around with. So the Isle water is going to become useful in a little bit. I'm actually going to rearrange things a bit. So the Schloss Jannings. I wonder if I'm getting a little too... Yeah. There must be order. This is also a pretty decent place for me to put the wood, so that's another small motive. Okay. So we should be able to fit all of the paints on one shelf. I will order them by color on another occasion. That's perhaps something to do if you need like one of those, 10 hours of such and such activity for a nice relaxing sleep, I can save it for one of those, let's say. We are starting to get in shape. Skin Shock Mead. Skin Shock Mead is very helpful. I've never actually made it yet, but I imagine from some of the books that I've read, we will need honey for it. So right now I'm happy to consider it a somewhat rare item. Alright, happy to keep the basket of clean towels in place. This seems safe. So I don't remember this being in this room. It actually is slightly inconvenient because it doesn't have an obvious place to go. I think having two in this area is a little silly. So it is a storage area. I'm okay leaving it, but I'm leaving it under protest. So where would I put the wood? A little large for... There we go. This makes sense, and this makes sense to me. Okay, so and there's nothing else that we really get in here. We do get to see little images. We get to read a bit about the dwarfs a bit more, some more. Oh, actually, we can put the bolt of linen in here as well. I figure we can keep the clean linen in the same area, but yeah, I'm not sure I want to play around with the rest of this. So, I suppose my choices come down to how much I want to try the 10 Grail areas and how much I want to... it's best when it's warm, but it'll keep. I actually need to find a place to put that, so we'll put you on the desk here. We're fairly early in the day, but I'm going to... Well, I guess late in the day. I'm going to check a couple things. I want to read The Fallen Cross. Just get a reminder as to what the contents of that is. And then I don't believe I can open these with my my afflicted elements of the soul. But like I said, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to generate some memories for the for some of the work that I want to do here. I'm not going to try reading, unless we wind up with a storm, I'm not going to try reading the Instruments of the Heart. In fact, that's one risk that I'm doing by not... yeah. So it did just occur to me that if I don't recover the core, then when a storm comes, all bets are off with Instruments of the Heart. Okay, well fortunately a foggy day is more convenient for me. So this is one of these points where I might consider committing something to the Tree of Wisdoms. With the Twin Serpent Tantra, if we had a Shapt, we could combine this with Door and Wall, so that would be... so between Door and Wall and Fog, that would be 5... no, actually we don't have a knock tool, so we'd be short. Okay, well what about some moon texts? Well, we don't have Fusine, so that's not a spot we can start. But Observations of the Peacock Door, well, if I had Vac, that would That would maybe be a little bit more helpful, so much for that. Surely I have something. On the white. I really would have thought I would have a higher level moon text for me to play around with at this point. That is a shame if that's not the case. Okay. By their marks ye shall know them. Okay, so I'm gonna put a very limited break on my commitments. So I'm not quite ready to try. So the big thing here is that if I want to try and level up Deep Mandayak, Kilisimi, Henevek, or Crack Track, each of those are going to involve... those would have to have a lesson, and so far as I can tell, there is not a lesson for any of the languages. So in this case, if one of these winds up giving me a shapt, I'd be willing to consider it. I don't think they will, but you know, it's an example. Okay, so we've also already committed something to illumination. So if I want to commit Crack Track, it's basically preservation. That gets me another core. So a tongue of earth, Crack Track, is the native tongue of the living world. As long as Crack Track is spoken in cloud shape and hill form, life persists. This is a matter of preservation. Henevek is Bosk and Ithistry. Now there's some reasons why I would find Bosk interesting already. But that gets me a health, or that gets me a whist. Now that is very interesting. Kilisimi is a Skolakosophy or a Bosk, so again, equally interesting in both cases, health or Arab. And Deep Mandayak is an Ithistry or a Horamakistry. That's a metal... Ooh, or a Fost. Okay, there's definitely... There's some really interesting choices that I need to make here. Now, I would ideally like to put something in Bosk. So the whist is very utilitarian at this point. It's the stars. A Smith's proverb in Brandkrug, what starts in the sky ends in the earth. The story goes with it. That the village smith's anvil in the time of the dwarfs was hatched from a meteor stone, and so every plow in the village knows something of the stars. Not many remember the story, but everyone remembers the proverb. It would probably count as Ithistry. The farmer's proverb in Brandkrug, what starts in the roots ends in the sky. A superstition goes with it, that before a child's first birthday, you should leave her for a summer night sleeping in the roots of an apple tree to make sure she grows tall and straight-backed. Not many pay heed to the superstition now, but everyone remembers the proverb. That would probably count as Bosk. Okay, I think I wasn't originally planning on doing this today. Actually, I noticed that we're at the half-hour mark, so, and this is also with... This is also with the Tuesday episode coming over. So I am going to start committing some things to the Tree of Wisdoms, but I am going to leave that as a cliffhanger for tomorrow. It may not necessarily fix our fog business today, but I am gonna leave this because I think it's fun to actually read these things out, and I don't want to rush the choices here. So thank you everybody for watching. I will be back Wednesday for a new episode as we get some more elements of the soul and we start pushing a bit deeper into the house. Till then, take care.